Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. So, very strange post made by Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, Democrat, who again, during the Palisades fires was in Ghana on a little fun hootenanny kind of a trip, and since then has said time and time again, there's no money in Los Angeles. There's no money to pave the roads and fix the potholes. There's no money to actually move through some of the permitting processes so people can rebuild their homes. There's just no money. The city doesn't have any money. In fact, we need to raise taxes. We need to raise taxes on the millionaires and the billionaires, to quote Bernie Sanders. So says Los Angeles Mayor, who's running for re-election, Karen Bass. And she announced today, or well, not today, I should say, at the end of not yesterday, but the day before, August 17th, today is August 19th, that she was going to do a little fundraising hullabaloo. But what she says in the video may be, well, see for yourself.
Your donation to our campaign is more critical right now than ever before. Let me explain. Thanks to LA's Supermatch program,
LA's Supermatch program.
Every qualified donation from Los Angeles residents is matched 6-1 by the city.
Hang on. Due to a program enacted by the Los Angeles City Council, staffed exclusively by Democrats, the Democrat mayor, current incumbent, who is running for re-election, is saying, if you donate to my campaign, you donate right now, then the city of Los Angeles, meaning taxpayer money, will then multiply your donation by 6? What?
But after the primary, we had to start over from scratch. So we need you to rush your matching donation right now to help fuel this campaign.
Hold on. Now in the general, you taxpayer funded, I mean, seriously, I'm not joking, not trying to pull the wool over your guys' eyes, not trying to clickbait you into oblivion here. The city of Los Angeles, like a government, can match political campaign donations?
Chip in $5 right now, and the city turns it into $35. Chip in $25 right now, and the city turns it into $175. Make your matching donation today. Thank you so much.
Thank you to who? To the person doing the actual donations, or to the city of Los Angeles? Again, I just told you, the city that's not paving any roads, the Los Angeles police and fire departments, they say, are woefully underfunded. They can't do basic infrastructure repair. They can't do anything about the actual staffing shortages in certain parts of the Los Angeles city infrastructure. But boy, they have money to spare to increase campaign donations to the incumbent mayor, Karen Bass. Now, to be clear on this program, it was voted for to be increased to a 6-1 margin back in 2019 by the Los Angeles City Council. You're going to remember that here in a second. This first became a thing in 1990. Again, according to the records on this, I'm sure like many of you, this is the very first I heard about this today. The very first I have ever heard about this today. Senator Mike Lee is understandably, he's pretty outraged by this. The idea, and from a lot of senators that are expressing, a good amount of frustration, like, how can this be real? I thought that in the United States, that yes, I know that states and localities have authority over their elections, but if you'll forgive a little bit of my naivety here, I believed that there were some things that no matter what were subject to state and federal laws, like, for example, election finances. For example, if I'm running for a statewide election in Indiana and I take a bunch of out-of-state election money violating Indiana election law, that I'm also running the risk of violating a federal law. That was my perception. But apparently, because in 1990, the Los Angeles City Council said it's okay to use taxpayer dollars as campaign donations. I guess that's fine. Now let's get into the meat here. So on the actual tweet that she posted this little video out with, it takes you to, of all places, ActBlue. And, again, of course it does. Of course it takes you to ActBlue. ActBlue, again, is the grassroots funding platform for the Democrat Party. And the ActBlue platform allows individuals to go online, enter in an amount, whether they want to make it recurring or not, and then ActBlue takes that money and then delivers that money to the campaign, by which I mean this. So online platforms like this do not just individually hook people directly up peer-to-peer, meaning like a peer-to-peer download service would mean that you have a certain file and then you send me that file. ActBlue doesn't work like that. ActBlue, you give the money to ActBlue. ActBlue then gives the money to the campaign. And when you actually start looking through this, you actually start digging into the details here, she makes it very clear that up to $257 per person can be multiplied by 6 under the LA City Matching Funds program. And then also asks that you make it, monthly, that you really get in there. There are some rules beneath this. That you're at least 18 years old, that it doesn't cause you to exceed your contribution limit of $1,800. You understand all contributions that you make to this candidate or committee must be accumulated. I understand that a contribution from another individual entity whose contribution activity I control, such as a business that I own, must be aggregated with this contribution. So what ActBlue does here, it says, I promise that I'm following the rules. You say, well, this is, ActBlue's doing their due diligence here. Here's the problem, boys and girls. Earlier on in the year, you may remember around April that ActBlue and all of its leadership that went to testify before House committees were brought before House committees because ActBlue had allegedly taken a bunch of foreign money. So someone from another part of the world said, oh, yes, I'm from the United States. I'm right here in New Delhi, Nebraska. And then they entered the donation. And then ActBlue, allegedly, according to the documents, again, not yet proven in a court of law, but according to the documents that have been released, and then again, all of the individuals from ActBlue who, instead of saying, no, this didn't happen, pled the Fifth Amendment, all of them before Congress, which is so in style right now. Well, Congress and the Department of Justice have still been digging into the ActBlue, and I've talked about this earlier on the show this week, that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders and Abdul El-Sayed and other members of the Democrat Party who are still leaning all into ActBlue, several other insiders in the Democrat Party, and oh, how interesting that this just so happens to work out. It's well, actually, wait a minute, it's right here. Notice down here at the bottom, even CNN is now reporting that some Democrats are quietly afraid it could cost Democrats the midterms. Why? Because if Congress and the Department of Justice get some kind of an injunction because they are concerned that ActBlue isn't actually doing any due diligence and checking where someone's location is from, let's say before the city of Los Angeles matched a donation and multiplied it by 6 or something like that. Again, hypotheticals only here. Well, then they could shut down the campaign and all that money could be locked up. And then that money could not be going to James Tallarico and Abdul El-Sayed and Angie Nixon and on and so forth. So it is a serious problem. Now, if you scroll your eyes, if you're on the live stream, if you're on the radio and you're driving, please don't scroll your eyes. Please watch the road. But notice that the rest of these news stories here, questions we've talked about over the last month, like an elderly donor in Michigan who apparently made $150,000 in donations to Abdul El-Sayed, is wondering why on earth ActBlue is showing that she donated. She says she didn't give any money over to him. Says it's not possible. She's living in a trailer. Investigators found that ActBlue donations inflated for many Wisconsin seniors. That's Wisconsin. That's not Michigan. That's according to reporting over at the Center Square. And this last little bit from Legis 1, House committees will depose ActBlue's chief over donation fraud again tomorrow, August 20th. So it's a very interesting time for ActBlue. Now, the reason I've tied this all the way so quickly from Karen Bass on the Los Angeles side to ActBlue is that not only does it have to do with the Los Angeles candidates, because, oh, yes, they are. I'm getting texts right now from people who are listening to this who are informing me that there are, in fact, other places around the country where this is happening. Don't get ahead of me. We're going to get to that. Radio crew, we got to send you to the commercial break because I don't want the FCC to find me. There's no Indiana law that makes exceptions for me, even though I'm very, very handsome and good looking. So we're just going to continue on the live stream and you'll pick up with us in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Now, again, you have Nitya Raman, who is also trying to do the same thing. Hey, 6-1. You'll note the link is also to ActBlue. This is going to become a bit of a trend in case you can't exactly tell where it is that I'm going. In San Francisco, the same thing. Oh, hey, if you join this program, then you can be a part of this amazing matching funds program. And they say this is to amplify the little people, but it's not amplifying the little people. It's taking money from people who have chosen not to be a part of that campaign. It is taxpayer-generated revenue for the city or the local polity, not just in San Francisco, but in Berkeley for city council races. Matched 6-1 in Berkeley. Also on the other side of the coast in Washington, D.C., Janice Lewis George, Washington, D.C., will turn your gift of $5 into $30. Wow, amazing. By the way, if you're wondering how many of these candidates we've done the research for this evening, how many of these individuals with these big ads are Republicans? None. Now, I know you're not actually surprised by that. And also, all of these are on ActBlue, all of them, every single one of them. Again, who is just currently under federal investigation, which is currently under congressional investigation, because they don't allegedly check where the money's coming from. Insane. Apparently, if your city council just votes randomly on a Tuesday that you can totally use taxpayer funding for incumbent campaign momentum, oh, that's totally fine. It's insane. Of course, the Democratic Socialists of America, they're all in on this. Same thing. You know, you have to qualify for the Portland Small Donor Elections Matching Federal Funds Program of Mystery. You know, It's wonderful. Very, very wonderful. Same thing in Seattle as well. Also in the Denver City Council races, the same matching fund program thing. I'm sorry. You can't complain about money in elections. You cannot complain about the worries and the concerns and the big issues in money swaying elections, and then watching people against their will have money taken from, again, if I spend money, or well, it's taxed from me specifically here in Indiana where I am, and my city takes that money and then donates it to just campaigns, I've been ripped off. As I have made clear before on the show, if we're going to be spending taxes, then at least they should be going to Americans, not the ones running for office, but they should be actually going to the programs I'm supposedly paying for, like Medicaid and Medicare and the other various programs that I'm forced to pay for, as are you. In Denver, no, that's going to candidates running for office. It's bonkers. And again, not just in this case, also in New York City, of course, Zoran Mamdani, speaking of the socialists, is all for it. Adrian, for the people. He says, remember, donations from New York City residents can get up for up to $250 can get matched 8-1. So no one in New York City has any money for rent. New York City doesn't even have the money for, Zoran wants more and more and more and more to pay for these big, huge education programs. And to, for universal pre-K and all of these other, free buses. But New York City taxpayer money is not going to that. No. It's going to getting his picks in office. Now, these do come with some limits, and it is why that Zoran himself, I suppose for 2029, because he's already decided he's going to, run again. He's opting out of this, at least planning to, because there's only a certain cap and he wants as much money as possible. This is insane. Now, our producer Lou reached out to ActBlue and asked for any kind of a comment on this. And I know, breaking huge shocker news, they didn't give us any kind of a comment. I know, I too am very, very surprised. So to be clear, even though this is technically by city council rules legal, this is in fact the very kind of fraudulent spending of taxpayer dollars in order to sway elections. That would be the definition. And also wildly hypocritical as well. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. Meanwhile, over in other really, really bad decisions that have serious consequences, over in Virginia, you may recall that Abigail Spanberger, she's the governor of Virginia, the very first thing that she did when she became governor, her very first day, she signed an executive order which rescinded prior governor Glenn Youngkin's executive order to mandate that Virginia police cooperate with immigration enforcement. Here's that as a quick reminder.
And this executive order rescinds executive order number 47. State and local law enforcement should not be required to divert their limited resources to enforce federal civil immigration laws. It is a responsibility of federal law enforcement. Virginia state and local law enforcement officers must be able to focus on their core responsibilities, investigating crime and community policing.
Okay, so yeah, that turned out to be a really bad decision. I know you're not actually surprised about this. Let's dig right into why. So Bill Melugin over at Fox sharing this truly gut-wrenching story. One of the illegal immigrants in the Commonwealth of Virginia who participated in the stabbing murder of a mother near a jogging trail in Great Falls, Virginia, is a Salvadoran illegal who was caught and released at the border by the Biden administration in El Paso, Texas in April 2024, because, of course, Fairfax County Police announced the arrest of 19-year-old Alexis Antonio Cedillos Campos this morning in connection to the stabbing killing of Carmen Lizette Puch on Monday and released a photo of his arrest. So this is an individual who had previously been caught and apparently was also known to Virginian Commonwealth Police, or at least this individual in general was known. But because Abigail Spanberger says if you're in the Virginia police, you're law enforcement in the Commonwealth of Virginia, you are not allowed to work with federal law enforcement. Yet another case. Just another Maryland man, as we would say. And open the floodgates because, again, when you are looking at the case after case after case, Virginia has truly become, in a very, very short time, just a sanctuary commonwealth here. It's the Commonwealth of Criminals, I guess, in this case, is the Department of Homeland Security made the case today. Immigration Customs Enforcement lodged detainers for 3 illegal immigrants who have been arrested for sex crimes against children in Staunton. Now, again, as a quick reminder, Abby Spanberger, the governor of Virginia, Democrat, has signed executive orders that prevent police from automatically turning over these individuals to federal law enforcement. She may or may not honor these detainers. So these 3 suspects were arrested in late July. This is according to Border Hawk. That's who the Homeland Security crew is citing here. According to the article, all 3 suspects were arrested in late July and are currently incarcerated at a Middle River Regional Jail in Staunton, an independent city roughly 40 miles west of Charlottesville. The 3 individuals are Bayron Jose de Paz Lopez, age 31. He's a citizen of Mexico, allowed into the United States by the Biden regime after crossing the border into Arizona on 2021. He's been charged with attempted sex offenses and 9 counts of solicitation of a child under 15. Number 2, Santos Bautista Molina, aged 40. He's a citizen of Honduras who illegally crossed the southern border into Texas back in 2005. He's been charged with attempted sex offenses and, again, 9 counts of solicitation of a child under 15. And then last, certainly not least here, Efren Ramirez Escobedo, aged 48, a citizen of Mexico who snuck into the U.S. at an unknown location and date. He's been charged with forcible intercourse, i.e. rape, and sexual assault of a victim between the ages of 13 and 14. Again, the previous commitment from Abigail Spanberger and other individuals of the Democrat Party in Virginia that have made it clear that individuals like these should not be released to ICE under any circumstances for any crime. These are the consequences. Now, I mean, it's not like we have, a lot of cases of individuals that are not only committing these kinds of heinous crimes, but also committing all kinds of fraud. If we had cases of, for example, illegal immigrants that were, not only, again, committing these violent, heinous offenses, but were also taking your money and perhaps participating in federal programs like Medicaid. You and I have been told that Medicaid, no illegals are getting any kind of access to it, even though there are illegal immigrants from Korean immigrants, both supposedly temporary, like expired visa immigrants in New York City, or Somali immigrants, or temporary protected status individuals in Minnesota or in Ohio who are committing Medicaid fraud, Medicare fraud, wire fraud, NGO fraud, and on and so forth. Well, we're now just saying the quiet part out loud from the Democrat side of the aisle. This article from The Hill today, again, a lot of different shows out there. I understand you guys are focusing on a story about a mom that's got like a lot of social media drama, and I get it. I'm just saying some of this stuff, given that a lot of us in this field are political analysts and political news breaker downers, whatever you want to call it, maybe just a little bit more relevant instead of like entire shows dedicated to online drama. When you have senators like Wyden here, according to The Hill, that are now demanding that Medicaid stop sharing any kind of information with Immigration Customs Enforcement. Gee, how about that, Gilbert Gottfried?
Oh, there's a big surprise.
Now, why would you want Medicaid to stop sharing information with federal law enforcement? Which, by the way, Medicaid is a federal program. It's a federal program, boys and girls. So federal data being accessed by federal law enforcement. By the way, you don't have any right to take government money and then not have the government look at it. That's not a thing. If you don't want the federal government to be looking at a certain account, it shouldn't be connected to the federal government. That's the point. That's why there are some of us over on, some sides of the aisle that kicked up such a fuss over $600 Venmo or PayPal payments being instantly flagged by Janet Yellen under the Biden administration. That was a privacy fight. But if it's on Medicaid or Medicare or SNAP or another federal benefit program, yeah, that should be scrutinized because I want Americans who are supposed to be getting that money to get the money. Now, again, why would Immigration Customs Enforcement be asking for Medicaid, Medicare information? Maybe to check if individuals on it are taking a lot of money out for one person, which would mean, that those may be living with them who maybe came here illegally, who aren't supposed to be receiving Medicaid or Medicare, are receiving such things? Well, according to the article from The Hill, and of course, all of these various senators on the Democrat side of the aisle are now making a really sizable stink about this. According to Joseph Choi and Nathaniel Wexel, Democratic senators on Tuesday accused the Trump administration of violating a court order and then demanded that Medicaid data stop being shared with ICE for use in deportation proceedings. Wait a minute, deportation proceedings? The only people who can be deported are those who have violated their visa rules or who are illegals, which I'm told that Medicaid doesn't go to any of them. So why would Medicaid data be a problem there unless those individuals do so happen to be receiving in some way, shape, or form, either through proxy, which is fraud, either directly through fraud, or some other tertiary or quaternary kind of fraud? Man, shouldn't that be important enough to know? There was an entire era where Democrats in the 90s, the Bill Clinton kind of populist Democrats, at least put up a big show in Congress about wanting the huge amount of federal spending, the kind of corporate cronyism that the Democrat establishment side of the aisle is based on. Shouldn't they want those dollars to go where they're supposed to go? Well, no, not anymore. Now, under a federal injunction issued in December from District Judge Vince Chabria in California, Homeland Security, Health and Human Services, HHS, not the DHS, was restricted to only share basic data such as addresses, phone numbers, birth dates, and citizenship or immigration status. The ruling also barred ICE from collecting information on lawful permanent residents or citizens. Now, the Trump administration asserted here that a district judge in California just had no authority at all to make this ruling whatsoever. Now, again, these senators are now saying that, they've somehow been shared a spreadsheet, a whole Excel document containing Medicaid data on millions of enrollees in the plaintiff states. Again, you're kind of saying the quiet part out loud here. What are they really upset about? That on January 19th, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services sent ICE a spreadsheet with the biographical information of nearly 6,000 refugees in Minnesota. Now, radio crew, just a second here before I send you guys to the commercial break, we'll do a little thinking kind of word problem puzzle together. Yeah. just you and just real quick before we send you off to the commercial break. 6,000 refugees in Minnesota. What happened in the end of last year, 2025, and at the beginning of this year, 2026, in Minnesota? There are a certain group that comes to your mind that was maybe engaged in a large amount of Medicare and Medicaid fraud. How curious and how interesting. Isn't it though? Radio crew, we'll see you guys in a second on the other side of that commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. I mean, come on, folks. And then, by the way, of course, you have Ed Markey. He's out there, and he's very, very, very mad that in how dare they share this kind of information anywhere? Oh, it's unlawful. Not once, not twice, but three whole times a federal agency shared federal data from one agency to another. Oh my gosh, horrible! The craziness. Wow. All right, so the awkward situation the Democrats have now decided to land themselves on in the middle of a pretty stiff midterm competition. Kind of crazy. I'm just saying, yours truly here. Now, on the quick note here, if you would consider, if you like the show so far, if you think this is useful, throw a like on the show, maybe some kind of a subscribe. That would help us out a ton. And the only reason I ask that is, again, if this is the kind of stuff that you enjoy, it helps us out. So that all said and aside, let's move on to some of the other insane news for the day. This brings us over to the UK, because a lot of this policy and a lot of the pearl clutching is driven by one of the core demographics of the left wing in both the United States and in the UK and in France, which is middle-aged left-wing liberal women. Now, I've made this case before. There is something about ladies on the left. They age differently than ladies on the right and apolitical ladies. It's just the truth. And it's so obvious that in a previous James Tallarico of Texas video where he claimed 3 women were Republicans, immediately I looked at the whole case in question and said, none of those ladies look like Republicans at all. Maybe one of them kind of. And it came out like 2 weeks later that, yeah, they weren't Republicans at all. Or something just about like the very social activisty people on the left, they all seem to kind of age the exact same way. And they also begin to clutch pearls about things that are just bewildering to the average normal individual of both sexes. Specifically this, again, those who commit violent crimes or heavy fraud, there's no concern. They want to increase it. Again, whether it's illegals in Virginia and Abigail Spanberger, or whether it's Peggy Flanagan up in Minnesota. If you say anything about the Somali community, she'll record a video crying in her car. That kind of stuff. Well, the end point of this is now over in the United Kingdom. Now, we're getting a little bit of an inkling of this in the United States with Chicago, which we'll get to in a second. But now, over in the United Kingdom, the British government, the Home Office, has now resorted to begging migrants, legal and illegal, from the mass imports from third world countries, from Africa and the Middle East and South Asia, West Asia, those kind of places. They've had to beg them now not to rape children. Not joking. It's truly one of the craziest things I've ever seen. Home Office is now plastering the country with these brochures that are, well, trying to like kindly explain that you have to make sure the person wants to have sex with you before you have sex. Quote, in the UK, both people must say yes to sex. This is called consent. If you have sex with someone who does not want to, this is called rape. Rape is a serious crime. And then they have to like remind people that it's still rape. And then, by the way, this is the part that really floors me, because we're going to dig through these. This is a blood boiling kind of a thing. Underneath the little fancy sketch that they have, which, by the way, for the first time actually portrays a person who is not white as the one that looks like they're guilty of the one doing the raping. That's a banner day for the UK. But anywho, they say if you have sex without consent, you could go to prison. This will affect your asylum claim. First of all, I don't believe you. But number two, I would sure hope that it would. You know what you can also do if you have people that are from a culture? So this is kind of cool. If you have, by the way, teachers do this all the time. If there are students who in grade 4 were really awful children, they tend not to want those children in their class if they're a 5th grade teacher. We would get together as teachers, liberal, conservative, independent, Republicans, Democrats, the head of the teachers union, down to the most anti-teachers union guy ever, me, at Knightstown Intermediate School, or at Lawrence North High School in Indianapolis, or at the Academy for Excellence in Milwaukee, or at Indianapolis Public Schools. Teachers gather around and go, oh, I don't want that kid. Because how a child acts previously often indicates, because obviously a kid screaming and cussing and beating the ever-loving out of another child could disrupt your lesson on the solar system. You don't have to, if you import someone from a country where they're like, you don't need to have consent. You can just rape kids and women, whatever. I mean, have a party. And then you bring them into the country. You don't have to have this conversation with them if you don't bring those people in, kind of crazy. I can actually, here in my part of Indiana, you can walk outside at night and it's not actually scary. You can try that in Dearborn, Michigan. Wouldn't recommend it, personally. These are truly some of the most insane things, and it's beyond wild. It's beyond wild. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. It's good to be with you guys this evening because the United Kingdom is now trying a poster campaign to explain to migrants from the third world that they've imported by these massive numbers. And again, all of their middle-aged liberal women are out in boats going, here's how you get across the channel. There you go, love. Get in the boats. Go over. Tuck into some fish and chips once you get to the other side. And now they got to put up posters. Oh, hey, by the way, child abuse is a serious crime in the UK. No kidding. Child abuse is against the law. You must never physically hurt a child, shout at or threaten a child, have sex or sexual contact with a child under 16. Hold the phone. I'm just going to say here that point number 3, the having sex with children thing, probably should be above the shouting at a child. Denying food or clothes or shelter or care to a child, leaving them alone with a child, cutting or harming a girl's genitals. Oh, wait a minute. That thing that I was told wasn't happening. Oh, wow. Oh, they have to put that on the poster. Now, some of you in the comments have noted that there is a bit of a problem here with these posters. We're going to get to that, though. Don't jump ahead of me, though. By the way, you may know, you notice that what language that, these posters are in? Meanwhile, all of the street signs and for example, here in the United States, if you're in Michigan, the Home Depot, aisle labels and things, those all have to be in English. But boy, all of these posters in here. Anyway, well, just keep that in the back of your mind here. Again, the same kind of weird posters. They have to remind people the legal age of consent in the UK is 16. Even if they look older or it is allowed in another country, you must never have sex with anyone under 16. I have to explain this to people is bonkers. And by the way, this is only something that like one specific kind of culture deals with. Like you're not getting migrants from the United States or majority Christian countries or majority Jewish countries or majority agnostic countries. Just for, if we're just going to go ahead and list like Western dominant cultures here that have to be, reminded of this just for the record, the cases that we're actually looking at here in the UK. Also, they have to remind people in the UK, men and women are equal. That means that men and women are treated the same. My goodness. Women can work, study, travel, and make their own choices. Man, they seem to know a lot of ways that the other culture they're talking about here treats women. Domestic abuse is illegal. You can't just go around beating your wife. Hitting, pushing, physical violence, threatening or verbal abuse, controlling their money or where they go. And last but not least, honor-based violence or abuse. Again, wow! They seem to know an awful lot about these honor-based cultures. Interesting indeed. And then again, look at all of this, guys. All of this like sex and consent, and it's just this huge document of things that you can and can't do, and bullet points and reminders and helpful tips and how not to rate people for dummies. And by the way, I do want to point out real quick here. I am also noticing that certain elements of the view count are a bit lower tonight than usual. No comment. Just a little bit of a wink there. All of that said and aside, you notice that it's all in English, and also that the migrants that are coming into the country absolutely can't read. There's an old King of the Hill meme in which Bobby has to, like, he's like standing outside this classroom and he's holding up a poster. It's like, repent sinners, you're going to hell, or something like that. And then this man walks up and says, you know, Bobby, if those kids could read, they'd be very upset. And that's essentially in this case. He's like, all these posters that say, hey, try not raping and murdering and doing all of that stuff in the place that you left. And again, that group can't read. Now, it is here in the United States. Again, you should be relieved. We're in the infancy stages of this nonsense here at home in the US of A. But here in Chicago, same thing. Violence on the CTA, the Chicago Transport, is it Authority? Chicago Transit Authority, I think, will not be tolerated. The Cook County State Attorney's Office will prosecute and seek pretrial detention for all violent offenses on public transit. And again, I want you to notice the girlies that were so proud of themselves for putting up this little poster and signs, these ads all over the subway in English. We're going to stop them, guys. We're going to do it. Let's do it, guys. We're going to stop crime.
This is Chicago.
Making CTA safer.
In order to have a safe, thriving city, we need to have a safe public transportation system.
Oh, I'm sorry. Again, please, by the way, please consider me prejudiced on this. Liberal, left-leaning women are something else.
So today we are launching our initiative that we, as the state's attorney's office and the CTA, are taking pride on.
Oh, gee, look. 2 above middle income liberal women in pantsuits strolling the Chicago L train.
The CTA very seriously.
Everyone deserves a safe and enjoyable ride.
I've never ridden the L train myself. I think my husband watched a movie with the L train and The Fugitive once, but I'm very passionate about trains. Mainly Thomas the Tank Engine, but these trains too.
And we're working together to make sure that happens.
We are putting up these signs as an indication of what the consequences will be of any criminal actions on the.
Oh, that was it. See, that was the squeaky wheel needing the lanyard grease. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about the lanyard grease thing in a second. That was the issue. People didn't know the consequences, guys. Same with the UK posters. If you do this thing, you'll get in trouble. There's a popular joke that atheists like to make that can you imagine needing your religion or something to keep you from doing bad things? I just simply don't do the bad thing. So in reality here, the irony of a culture of individuals needing to be told they will get burned if they touch the stove is just special. It is just special. And look, it takes a lot for an indie fundy Baptist here to actually give, an old, of all things, kind of an atheist joke some credit here. But whether you are atheist, Baptist, my dear Catholics, wherever you are, wherever you're from, you should be able to agree that this is the most embarrassing thing in history, whether in the UK or the United States. Now, again, the crew that wants to abolish any kind of safeguard whatsoever is, again, the group with the momentum in one of the political parties of the United States. We're going to get to that up next. Radio crew, we have to send you to the commercial break. I understand that for some of the markets, you guys are dealing with some storm warning notifications as well. Stay safe out there. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, in the meantime, let us continue yet again. So, here at home, the people that are advocating for getting rid of ICE and, getting rid of police, or Zoran Mamdani trying to get rid of prisons, like getting rid of Rikers Island in New York City, and just abolish everything. Because after all of these poor, sad people on the outside of the world, they're so nice and wonderful. You have to remind them, not to molest people. But anywho, we got to get them all in here. Well, one of them has now been not one of the rapists, one of the people advocating for the rapists, has now won the Democratic primary down in the state of Florida, and will be the Democrat choice. And technically the first Democrat Socialist of America candidate to win a primary for a Senate level position. Abdul El-Sayed is a socialist and he agrees with all of the platforms, but he's not technically a member, wink. Angie Nixon beat out Alex Vindman, who is the most, you may remember, he's the guy who was a lieutenant colonel and essentially a swivel chair officer, went before Congress to talk about how bad Trump was. And when someone addressed him, he was like, actually, I'm Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, that goober. So he ended up losing to Angie Nixon. Just as a quick reminder of who this winner is that Florida has decided to make their champion for the midterm election. Oh yeah, this lady. Fascinating behavior. Interesting.
It is. It's a violation of the Constitution. I'm out of order for law. I do it illegal.
Good times, good times. Again, while she was campaigning in a church, she quoted the Marxist cop killer, Assata Shakur.
I'm going to open this up for questions, but I'm going to leave y'all with these words.
These words.
The famous freedom fighter before we open it up.
I love how she, again, when she's yelling in public, she uses her normal voice, but when she's in like a black church in the South, before we go, I'm going to leave y'all with these words. And she's like waiting for the organist to, like drop into the key of A major and like start backing her up. Oh, the pain. Anyway, let's hear her words.
Assata Shakur. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and protect one another. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Our chains are attacks on the voting rights.
Yes, that's what we needed. We needed like socialist Jasmine Crockett. Thrilling. And quoting again a cop killer, just excellent. As a reminder, again, is she an intelligent socialist? No.
Everything wasn't equal because women have still been getting paid 80 something cents on the dollar.
So you all know that. No, not even close. Not only has this been disputed and debunked and destroyed on even very left-wing networks at this point, time and time again, women are not automatically magically paid. I would have all women on my staff were that the case. If I could just pay them less and get more labor, it's not true. And also, she's citing the wrong number. I believe now it's supposed to be in the 70s. It's not the 80s. You're going to make up statistics, as Barney Stinson on How I Met Your Mother once said. At least make up a believable statistic.
Of a white man. And so you definitely just have to work to level the playing field, and you gotta close these corporate tax loopholes. You have to put the DEI
that's a dirty word
policies back in place.
God forbid, it's worse than some curse words these days.
Right. And
man, I can't possibly fathom why it is. I can't possibly fathom why it would be. What would possibly be the reason that now all of the pollsters are making Florida a very, very safe red state for the election? Again, the mass amnesty thing, I wasn't lying to you guys.
And what about another national position, which is the free movement of people, which the DSA means open borders? They say that's what that means. Do you support open borders into the United States?
I support a comprehensive and clear pathway to citizenship for folks. I believe that Border Patrol should make sure that they are securing the border. I believe, though, that there needs to be a clear, comprehensive, and compassionate pathway to citizenship.
passionate. The feels. Oh, amazing. It's wonderful. It's all, just let everybody in. I love it. Just thrilling stuff. And on the stuff that, again, people in the United States have really already abandoned, bragging about taking your children to drag shows is a choice.
I don't understand, like, there's no sexualization at a drag show. It's just people dressing up and singing and performing.
All right. Former teacher who did all of this nonsense in this fight years ago. Quick reminder to all of y'all out there in the wide beyond. Just a little quick refresher. If the men are dressing in lingerie, or the women are dressing in lingerie, and the lingerie is exposed and out there to everyone, and they have names like Straddle Hardbody, okay? It's sexual. Whether or not you like it, it's sexual. Whether or not you want to admit it. Even if you think the entertainment is funny, even if it just so happens to be a show and the characters on the show are making a lot of really dirty, heavy innuendo-filled jokes, those jokes are inherently sexual, whether or not you want them to be or not, whether you want to make the case or not. So her not understanding, again, just turning up the volume, because I guess that she's like plankton. If you just sound loud, you sound smart.
I've taken my children to drag shows, and it's fun. It's entertainment. It's wholesome entertainment, and there's nothing wrong. It's just like I don't get it.
I just wanted to check here, very, very, very quick. So while Florida law doesn't explicitly classify taking children to drag shows as a child abuse, it restricts minors from attending performances deemed sexually explicit or lewd under the Protection of Children Act. And the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the constitutionality of this law. Like a whole big thing about it. That was back on August the 5th of this month. So bragging about essentially doing things that, again, because they're obviously sexual, that violate the state law is a decision. Now, again, that's one kind. There's like the openly awful, and then there's just a lot of these candidates recognizing now that there are problems are trying to dig themselves out of holes that they're putting themselves into. Guys, Republicans are soft targets right now in a lot of places, in a lot of areas. And look, I say that because, I'll play a video from like Mike Collins down in Georgia or Collins down in Georgia, Mike Rogers up in Michigan, and I will offer bits of critique about how I think they could be running a far better campaign instead of just saying, I think that my opponent is rather unseemly. Great. Not necessarily the best way to fight back. However, while Republicans are that easy, quote unquote, just going deep down into the stupidest stuff possible is a choice. Abdul El-Sayed up in Michigan, who, by the way, we now can confirm. We just had Josh Hammer on the show to talk about Abdul El-Sayed's father being a member of an Islamic terror affiliate like organization. Again, in prior conspiracy and terrorism and aiding and abetting charges. But Abdul El-Sayed's mom, we can now confirm, also happens to have significant ties with Islamic terror organizations as well. So Abdul is now fighting this by saying he's just like Jesus.
Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, was considered radical in his time too. And
then of course you have all of the non-binaries and the they themselmans, the gentle thems, all going, oh yeah, Jesus was radical. Oh yeah.
There is a radical.
Mm-hmm. No. There was never a time where Christ came forward and was like, you know what? Steal everyone's money. No, I'm afraid not. And also using Jesus when it's convenient to you, just to say that you think everyone else is bad. I don't know if that's the move. But no worries. Not only is he Jesus, he's African Jesus. I'm not joking. He was criticized, and he's been asked consistently, hey, the Obama coalition of Democrats, all right? The Obama coalition of Democrats is traditionally built up of these groups. I've said this before, I'm going to make this clear again. Traditionally black voters. Now, there are technically in the United States, there are three kinds of traditionally black Democratic voter. Those who are in like inner city groups, those who are in the American South, and those who are considered in the broader suburban kind of diaspora for Black Americans. The immigrant, those who come specifically from Africa into the United States who immigrate here, don't have the strongest like voting for Democrat voting record. But anyway, so that's the first group is traditionally Black Democrat voters. Number two, used to be Hispanic voters. Now it's just brown voters, whatever that means. Because, I mean, if they're from New Delhi or Mexico City, what's the difference? And then number three would be LGBTQ plus 2IA. It used to just be gay voters. Then like the Pride Progress flag got involved and it got really weird. Number four were union voters and the working class American. They have largely abandoned the Democrat Party. And there's a lot of tension between unions and union leadership as a result. And then last but certainly not least, suburban women. Then the college educated really fit into the suburban women. They kind of became their own offshoot since then. So that was the traditional Obama coalition. And the Obama coalition has largely abandoned Abdul El-Sayed in Michigan. And a lot of the socialists. Black voters don't like Abdul. They don't care for him. A lot of traditionally conservative like families and lifestyles in a lot of Black voters in the Midwest and in the South. They don't care for the anti-Christian sentiment. Radio crew, we have to send you guys out because it's the end of the timer clock. Sorry about the short show, guys. Take care. It's Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal. Sorry, sometimes the FCC clock cuts us off right then and there. Regarding Abdul El-Sayed, though, anyway, he was being criticized for a lot of Black voters, especially around Detroit, Macomb County, Wayne County, that third one that I always forget. Again, I told you I was going to be looking very closely at the Clinton Township. That's where the Allison Ford assembly plant is. Abdul El-Sayed was asked, hey, a lot of Black voters don't care for you. Here is the response from Abdul El-Sayed.
I mean, why don't you just make it just happen there? The guy saying you're an Arab, you don't care about Black folks. You know, I hate to say this, but I continue to hear it.
So the reporter, which is very, very quiet on the C-SPAN press conference here, says, a lot of Black voters in Michigan are saying, hey, you're an Arab. You don't really care about Black voters. And I keep hearing it all the time. That's the prompt.
Older Black folks, people like some of Denzel's colleagues tell me that they're uncommitted for you.
You know, there's been an effort, I think, to divide people against each other. And unfortunately, you see that the consequence of that. To tell us that some group or another group have to be counterposed because there's not enough for all of us. I am Arab. I'm also African.
I am Arab. I am also African. The meme of Steve Buscemi. The meme of Steve Buscemi, where he walks out and he's dressed in like the red baseball cap. And he's like, how do you do, fellow kids? And in this case, it's just like, how do you do, fellow Africans? Which again, first of all, the move of just suggesting that like Black people are all African is that's a wild thing to say. Number two, my personal favorite here though, overall, dude, you're from Egypt. You realize that just saying you're from a continent, like not all people in Africa are Black, and oh goodness, how do you do, my fellow homies? Excellent. What a time. What a time. What a time to be alive. Just incredible. Amazing indeed. Now, he's really trying to generate a lot of support around being against data centers and being against flock cameras. So we'll play this clip. This is where he thinks a lot of Democrats are trying to jump on this really quickly. And then we'll talk about it very, very, very briefly here.
Hey, does it ever feel like you're in a cage, kind of stuck, being watched?
I do admit it. By the way, it is good campaign commercial to have the instrumental for... I always feel like somebody's watching me. That's good. That's a good campaign, kind of a video. If I could just take Collins from Georgia and have him adopt the Abdul El-Sayed campaign videos, and I don't mean the Blues Clues knockoff. That was awful. This is pretty clever, though.
Well, that's because you are. There's been this mass proliferation of flock cameras, any and everywhere. Little cameras watching your every move to collect information about you without you even noticing. That's all been part of a regime that's been pushed by, well, this guy.
Somebody must be doing something exactly right.
Okay, so he says, I'm against flock cameras and they're collecting all of this little bit of data on you. Okay, so previously on the show, I've criticized flock cameras. And the reason I'd criticized flock cameras was because there was a case where a lot of flock cameras were a potential access point for future like federal observation. However, after I made that critique, and a lot of people out there in the broader public made critiques of flock cameras, Flock has changed a huge part of their operating. They've actually changed a lot of things. I was rather surprised to see this. And Flock has instead decided to reduce access to a lot of things just to local polities. Some types and ways that the camera is storing data is only supposed to be pointed at like license plates, for instance. They're not supposed to be pointed at private businesses that don't want them pointed at them. They are making quite a few changes, and they're changing a lot of things due to public criticism, which, by the way, that's smart. That's a very smart thing to do. Regarding the data center fight as well, I have said that you need a data center that is willing to allow essentially like a Nick Shirley-esque kind of investigation in and ask all of the questions about water uses, electricity usage, and kind of do a Discovery Channel how it's made video, but inside a data center. The problem is that a lot of things like cooling and circulation inside a data center is proprietary, and they're worried about someone taking their homework. They're going to have to get over that. Just very little stuff like that is going to make a huge difference because the socialists are going to try to seize on this stuff that does have a lot of populist sentiment against it in a lot of places. Now, is that going to be enough to save Abdul El-Sayed?
Nope.
No, it's not. Absolutely not. Not even close. Don't think so. Best of luck to you. Now he's just resorted to saying, well, you know what Mike Rogers really is? He's a corporate suck-up and he likes Donald Trump.
Mike Rogers, during Trump's come-up, used to talk about how dangerous Donald Trump was. And now he does not see a policy that Donald Trump wants that he is not willing to kowtow to and rubber stamp.
Okay, as a quick reminder, a lot of people have gone after J.D. Vance on this. During the Trump 2024 election, I told you guys yesterday, we're just bringing up the same 2024 stuff that really didn't work and did nothing for Kamala. In fact, often made stuff worse. They're going to try it again. Like Mike Rogers, he likes Donald Trump. He's a Republican running for office, and the sitting president is a Republican. Yeah. Independent voters in Michigan are not going to go, I was thinking about voting for Mike Rogers, but after I heard that he likes the orange man, I said, oh no, not in this house. Oh no, absolutely not. Not in this Mackinac Island environment. No, sir. That's not a thing, guys. Trump has been in the public eye as a controversial political figure now since 2015. The polls now aren't changing because Donald Trump is suddenly on the ballot talking about Abdul El-Sayed.
He's willing to lick all the boots, so long as Donald Trump will keep giving him a thumbs up.
That's not doing anything. That's not swaying any people. Now, apparently Mike Rogers got out there and someone asked him a question, like a throwaway question, and said, are you going to debate Abdul El-Sayed? By the way, the answer to that is absolutely yes, he likely will. Because it will be nice and free, and Mike Rogers is pretty well spoken, and Abdul's just going to get up there and ask really crazy stuff, and then all Mike has to do is say, hey, does mommy say Allahu Akbar before tucking you into bed at night? Or is that only before or right after terrorist attacks? And no matter what the rest of the country says, again, that'll do fine. Either way, though, Abdul El-Sayed is very, very angry at rumors that he may not be debated. I'll have some thoughts on that in a second. We'll roll the clip.
I'll also say this. Mike Rogers does not want to have a conversation. Roop Rogers reported earlier today that he reached out for a debate. I've told Mike I'm happy to do 5 debates. 5 debates.
5 debates for a Senate race is insane. Any state, any race, anytime. 5 debates?
But, cowards, they want to shoot shots from, $45 million super PACs paid for by big corporations. They don't want to actually sit down and have a conversation.
No, he's firing shots from like running 54 to 46 in the polls. That's where he's shooting shots from. Home slice. My fellow African. I'm afraid that Mike Rogers is shooting shots from beating you with a leather belt in the polls.
Because if I were Mike Rogers, I wouldn't debate me either.
But you're not Mike Rogers. You know how I know that? Because you're not running a better campaign. So best of luck with this. Really, seriously, best of luck with this. Run it as hard as you can, as hard as you want to go. Sure. All right, whatever. If this is the plan, if this is what the Democrats have, this election map is not going to be a big, huge blue wave in November. It's not. I know a lot of people really think it's going to be. From right now, from where I'm seeing, unless something changes drastically, which it could, absolutely can, it's not going to be a blue wave. It's not going to be a red wave either, so far, from what I'm seeing. Now, remember yesterday, and you may not, and this may be the very first time that you've ever stopped by the show here for the Tony Kinnett Cast. And you may, just so perhaps, remember that I said that the President of the United States, there was a story that I reported on. In fact, it was a Politico article. And they said, hey, the President of the United States may be getting ready to walk back a ton of tariffs right before the election. And no one else was reporting it. Everyone else is like, do women actually have depression after pregnancy? And I said, you know, what about this story that actually is kind of important? Democrats are saying James Fishback is the right's new Hassan Piker. No, dumb. I said, this is an important story. Well, boy, howdy, wouldn't you know it, the President of the United States today made the case, and not a bad one, not a rough case by any stretch of the imagination. Made the case, actually, team, I do not have the president making, I need this clip over on the network attached storage, if one of you guys could throw that on there. President Trump today was asked about the tariffs and farmers because ground beef, because of a beef shortage, it's rather expensive. It is climbed to what, $7.90 per pound, I believe. And it's because of a cattle shortage. And there are also some regulatory issues that are a part of that because regulations are expensive on farmers. And I hear it. I do. However, the President of the United States, I said, if he starts pulling a lot of the tariffs down, it is going to do something pretty sizable for the president come the November elections. I do actually have it. It's right here. Let me pull it up here. This is the president today talking about lowering tariffs and kind of negotiating with Canada, specifically with farmers in mind.
Mr. President, today's about American production. Can you give us any update on your negotiations with Canada for a trade deal?
Yeah, we had a very good conversation with the Prime Minister last night, and we've come to a deal with Canada. As you know, the 50% tariffs across the board were going on against Canada today, and they called yesterday and they gave us the points that we had to have. Very fair deal for both. The tariffs will be non-existent for our farmers. Our farmers were paying tremendous tariffs into Canada, and those tariffs are going to be totally eviscerated, down to zero.
Yeah, guys, doing this right before the election. Now, some would say, well, Donald Trump, he did all of this, you know, and by the way, a lot of it, some of it, to be fair. So did Trump kill all of the cattle and cause the ground beef and the cattle shortage? No. And this is the one thing I'll say, look, as far as grocery prices are concerned, is beef expensive right now? And I loved bringing that up during the whole burrito gate debate that took up a bunch of shows for some people for some reason last week. Guys, ground beef is expensive because there's a cattle shortage in the United States. And that's the way that is, guys. You can't just snap your finger and be like, and on the third day, God said, let there be moo. And there was beef, so much beef. The old lady from Wendy's wasn't even asking for it. Like, that's not a thing the president has the authority to just make happen. But either way, that is still a concern for a lot of Americans. It is an issue. But anyway, again, here's the president finishing that remark today.
The U.S. going to lower tariffs on Canadian autos or lumber?
We're doing certain things. Got to give something, and we're doing certain things. They were paying a high number. We're reducing it a little bit. It's good for everybody. But our farmers are going to be thrilled. Our manufacturers are going to be thrilled. And basically, we have no tariffs going into Canada anymore. Canada was charging us tremendous tariffs.
Now, again, the president also started ratcheting things up as well. There were some free trade agreements with some exceptions. It's a very sticky issue. However, again, taking some of this stuff away right before the midterms, it's politically smart. It is. President again today also.
Mr. President, today's about American.
I said again today also. Just some really, really good stuff. He also issued I believe, a 3-day freeze. Not bad. Not a bad thing at all for the president of the United States to kind of be moving in economically and changing things up right before the election. It's a good thing. Sorry, I'm making sure that I pull up these clips specifically because I want to make sure that we get you all of the president's statements, because you don't just want to give somebody a free pass if he says something that I don't like, that I don't care for. You know, Want to make sure that we play it. Here you go.
Canada, if I could ask you, you said that there's a deal, an agreement in place. Are you willing to lower tariffs on steel and aluminum?
Well, we're looking at that.
In order to get farmers, get the tariffs lower.
Well, we're getting zero for our farmers. You know, farmers have been hurt very badly by Canada, and they won't be paying any tariffs anymore. And we may bring some of the tariffs down to a level where other countries are, because Canada was paying a higher tariff. Canada was paying us a higher tariff. So we are, look, we have a very nice relationship with leadership right now, and we'll see. But we did a 3-day pause. It was supposed to be a 50% straight across the board tariff that was going into effect at 7 o'clock this morning.
And now he's moving that stuff back, because if that goes into effect right before the midterms, a big, huge tariff right before the midterms, guys, that's going to kill him. If you want to piss voters off on the economy and make things more expensive, but the long-term gains are the same people who are telling me that foreign policy needs to change right before the midterms to convince voters also need to understand that playing a bunch of long games right now by enacting big, huge, smacking, honking tariffs right before the midterms. No. If we're going to really go for the midterms, upsetting voters on the number one issue that voters will come out and vote for in anger is the economy. If you have a recovering economy and stuff suddenly starts turning the corners, again, if it's a low propensity election, Republicans walk away with a huge victory here. They do. And by the way, with the redistricting in the South, especially, Republicans, all right, again, I've told you before and I've told people on the show, if this is your first show, I'm sorry it's so kind of crazy and kind of all in and out, and it's become kind of a spaghetti bowl for those of you on your first time here for TKC. With the Trump administration, if the gambles put forward by the president's office on foreign policy and the economy, meaning tariffs, if one of those two pays off and they win right before the election, I say by October 15th, Republicans pick up seats in the House and maybe pick up one seat in the Senate. It's very dependent on how Senate behaves. How the House behave, House elections, they depend very little. Again, unless someone gets out there and starts smacking themselves in the head with a hammer. The House elections depend very, very little on the Republican candidate. It's all just the general feel of the country. Because that's how midterms work these days, guys. I wish it were different, but it's not. And so if Trump wins if he starts bringing down some of the tariffs, and then amazingly, like, prices start coming down, and he still gets a lot of the manufacturing commitments that are already there and things start moving forward, sweet. I mean, that's going to make people feel happier. That's a good thing. Now, again, he doesn't mean he can snap cows into existence. However, if the president of the United States does start moving some of these things forward, then you're going to see some success. And the only person on the Democrat side of the aisle who knows this is Hakeem Jeffries. And it is the funniest, most hilarious bit of irony that I think I have ever seen. Now, again, before we get there, I do want to take a brief second and thank our sponsor for today. So, Ver Watches, very, very kindly, they sent over a watch to the studio because Victor Davis Hanson and I, we're friendly. And he recommends Ver watches. He's worn a couple of them. And I'm not like I'm not a Rolex guy. I'm not a Tudor or an Omega guy. I'm not. I'm just like simple automatic watches. So that's it. You know, I'm not a huge spender on that kind of a thing. I really, really do like Ver, however. So a lot of talk bringing American manufacturing back. So when a watch manufacturer announces everything is made in the country, that's a pretty big note for me. Used to be an entire American industry, and then it wasn't. Packed up and left a lot of the same way a lot of the country's productive work did. Became very heavily Japanese and Swiss and that whole fight on movements. Well, today's sponsor started bringing that stuff home. Ver, that's V-A-E-R. It is a Los Angeles watch company with a straightforward mission. Bring American watchmaking back. They assemble their watches in California, Arizona, and Alabama, and their leather straps are made in Illinois and Florida. And look, some of them are fashion accessories, but they're also tool watches. I really like this one. Look, this one they sent me. They have a couple of field watches that I plan on getting, and that's the real secret. If I also go buy it instead of just the one they send me, that means it's a good product. You guys know I'm wildly picky when it comes to sponsors. Sapphire crystals, premium materials, full waterproof warranties. You can swim or dive with one, or if it's a field watch, you can do a day's work in the watch, and it still looks nice at the end of it. Look, they've got 10,000 five-star reviews. Now they're one of the largest independent watch assemblers in the U.S., so I recommend them. That's the whole deal. VAER watches.com/TKC. Yeah, it's a watch I wear. There you go. I recommend it. Hot dog. And if it's enough to get me to replace a Seiko that I'm wearing, that means it's a really good watch. So far, really like him. If that changes, I'll let you know, but I don't expect it. And an American assembled watch. Kind of a nice change of pace. Thanks to them for sponsoring the show. All right. As I was just saying, Hakeem Jeffries seems to be the only Democrat at all who is aware that the current plan for the party should be to talk about the Trump administration's executive orders on the economy. The president of the United States, again, we've talked about little bits here and there. Hakeem Jeffries tweeted out earlier today, quote, "Republican extremists think the affordability crisis is a hoax. We know that everyday Americans are drowning in this failed economy. House Democrats are determined to do something about it." Now, again, he falls short here because he hasn't actually given me any plan for how they're going to fix the economy. And that's kind of the issue. But he recognizes where Americans' hearts would be in a campaign for a midterm, the opposition party to the administration. Nope, everyone's yelling about letting in all the illegals and not letting states work with ICE, and I guess claiming that you're African Jesus, which again, what a plan. So, anywho, meantime, and in other news, yet another Democrat congressman has been accused of sexual assault because, just, of course, why not? California Representative Jimmy Gomez now faces sexual assault allegations from a former staffer. Man, California is having a real one. Well, no worries to you, Representative Jimmy Gomez. Maybe your state or district can take taxpayer money and double it and triple it through ActBlue, to use your campaign to pay for legal bills if it gets that far. Anywho, so California Representative Jimmy Gomez, again, just what a place and time to be. He's under a House ethics investigation. According to the Daily Signal article by my friend Pedro Rodriguez, the committee launched a probe into the Democrats' deputy whip. He's their deputy whip. Oh my gosh, incredible. Regarding these allegations of sexual misconduct on Monday. Gomez is the founder of the Congressional Dads Caucus. Nothing says being a good dad like groping your staffers. He admitted on Monday that he made personal mistakes outside his marriage, but the acts were consensual in nature. Apparently, for Democrats, the most important rule is just as long as it's consensual, it's totally fine, even if it's morally unethical and it's evil, as long as everyone consented. Ugh. So, yeah, according to Pedro Rodriguez over at the Daily Signal, he posted this, quote, "Although my actions were consensual in nature and haven't violated the law or house ethics rules, that doesn't diminish the impact that these mistakes have made on those I care about the most," end quote. So this I love. He says, I should get to still be a congressman and I haven't done anything wrong, but also clearly I've done something wrong and I don't want you to think that I'm just an awful person. One of the attorneys for his accusers posted a statement on Wednesday contradicting Gomez's claim. Quote, "Contrary to Representative Gomez's assertion in his statement, his actions were not consensual in nature with respect to our client," the attorneys Lisa Banks and Sarah Nesbitt said in a statement. The woman also spoke with the ethics committee, quote, about her experience of sexual harassment and assault by Representative Jimmy Gomez. How many times now have we covered the story? There is a Democrat staffer, and they report that their boss, the Democrat senator or representative, got really, really, really handsy with them. And then we're told it didn't happen. And then we're told that if it did happen, it's a right-wing conspiracy to put it in front of the public. And then we're told, okay, it did happen, but it was consensual and it was fine. And then we're told, okay, it was consensual and it isn't a good thing. But it was also very much nothing. Very little happened at all. I didn't stand there and sexually harass her and abuse her. It was really just like a little bit of, maybe I catcalled her once, or I decided, what this hand really needs in it? One of my staff members' butts. That kind of a thing. And then we get the video, of Eric Swalwell rolling around on the hotel mattress with one of his staffers, or another one of his staffers. Founder of the Congressional Dads Caucus. According to the New York Post, the incident involved the now 51-year-old congressman allegedly, quote, making out, French kissing a Democratic staffer outside a backyard party hosted by Eric Swalwell. Well, of freaking court. Guys, he was just a womanizer. Eric Swalwell was just a womanizer. Nothing weird, nothing strange. It's not like he's running swinger parties to celebrate the start of the August congressional recess. To celebrate the start of it was a 2023 incident. The aide, as noted by the Post, and in this case summarized by Pedro Rodriguez of the Daily Signal here, quote, was sitting on the hood of the car and they were going at it, end quote, according to a source who was smoking a cigarette in front of Swalwell's home about a mile from the Capitol. I told you guys at the time during the Eric Swalwell stuff, everyone knows this stuff is going on in DC, everyone. Just like how I was really annoyed when Hunter Biden when there was cocaine that was found in one of the cubbies outside the Situation Room at the White House, and the Republicans seized on it, a little Politico headline there for you, Republicans seized, and said, oh, this is clearly Hunter's cocaine. And I said on the show, guys, that's not necessarily true because cocaine is everywhere in DC. Have I been offered cocaine before in DC? Yeah, I have. Did I do it? No, because I'm not retarded. Cocaine is everywhere in Washington on both sides of the aisle. The whole I don't know this person. Guys, people know if there are handsy Congress people. A lot of them are on the left side of the aisle. For the right, usually it's that, did you know that Nancy Mace or Victoria Spartz are mean to their staffers? And we're like, yeah, you can hear the shouting from halfway down the building. They yell a lot. There's literally in campaign advertisements during election season. None of this is hidden. And again, I'm transparent with you. I'm more than happy to tell you any of the bits and pieces that I have. And I've shared them with you. They were down the street a little bit, but it wasn't that discreet. What a concept. Oh, wow, amazing. A second source who was waiting for an Uber recalled that, quote, someone pointed it out and it took me a second to recognize who it was. Now that's concerning. There's this 51-year-old dude making out with this young staffer. And if it took you a second to figure out who it was, maybe that makes you think because it's so common in DC for Democrat representatives of certain ages to be making out with staffers. Curious and interesting. What a time to be alive. Now, people are now asking me for insider knowledge. I've been very clear with every one of you whenever there is a rumor and whether or not there's anything to it, just to be clear. To make that kind of stuff, all to the point. I'm not withholding information or anything from y'all. We like to follow the rules. Now, there is other stuff that I could get into tonight. Republican governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, he's announced earlier this week that he's shutting down the reported Muslim foot washing stations at Dallas-Fort Worth, has called on feds to dismantle these stations at George Bush Airport and end rampant H-1B visa fraud. I don't think we have enough time to dive into that one tonight specifically. I do want to take a quick second here, though, and instead answer a couple of... I got so many texts tonight while talking about the campaign finance thing. To answer a couple of mail time questions. So if you don't know, and on a kind of lower viewership night for some reason, stopping and explaining a couple things about how the show works. Maybe it's useful, maybe it's not. We'll find out. Over in the description, in our links, you click on the YouTube description or the podcast description, you can find all these links. There's a Discord link, and that's just a group messaging platform where a lot of us and the producers are on before and after the show, kind of throughout the week. A lot of you guys have shared things that end up becoming stories over here on the show. And there is one thing that I will talk about with y'all once we get there. However, I did want to answer a couple of the mail time questions. That's the best place to get a mail time question answered. As to some of the mail time questions this evening, the President of the United States did make a statement right at the beginning of the show in which he said that I believe the United States plans to do some economic embargoment of Iran. So he said this evening. I don't have the image for this, but the president said right after 7, no one has given the Islamic Republic of Iran a greater opportunity to make a deal than me. He said, tragically for them, they have failed to take it. Therefore, today, I am announcing the most crushing economic operation ever taken against any country. This will be economic warfare and isolation on an unprecedented scale. He then declares their military has been destroyed, their navy is gone, their air force is destroyed, their military factories are now rubble, their currency is worthless, and their country is hanging by a thread. And then he threatens other countries. He said, I'm also announcing that any country that allows its financial institutions, businesses, airports, or government entities to provide any type of lifeline to Iran will face tremendous economic consequences. He calls it an economic D-Day, says they're on the ropes and they'll never have a nuclear weapon. That is an interesting take by the President of the United States. At first glance, this appears to be kind of a holdover. And given that he's not moving forward on any military measures at the moment, it's certainly more than nothing. Is this going to be enough? And do we think the Iranian regime is going to collapse in the meantime? Before midterm, I doubt it. I doubt it. I need to see more about how the rest of the administration is categorizing this, since usually the president's truths alone usually don't just stand on their own. But yes, I did see that to one of the mail time questions which were asked. One question from a member named Grace Yem says, hey, Tony, how can we stop the Democratic Socialists of America? I'm worried about my state and everyone else's. How can we deport more people and make our whole immigration system even harder? Well, those are three different questions. So I don't know what state you're talking about regarding the DSA, but I'll say this. Stopping the DSA, there are three really great ways to do it. Number one is recognize that the DSA is saying a lot of really, really stupid things. I would first look around at other people around you that are aligning themselves with statements the DSA is making. So, for example, the DSA is going all out against data centers. And from what I've seen so far, a lot of that's kind of baseless. Now, there are some concerns that, again, we at the Tony Kinnett Cast are still looking into because we're not making any premature decisions. However, as I've said before on air, picking Republicans that are suggesting, well, at least the DSA is doing something, like certain former Republicans have suggested, get rid of those people. Get rid of those people who just say, well, at least they're fighting, get rid of them. Anyone that's aligning with socialist regarded statements, get rid of them. Number two, put forth candidates that actually are good against them. That's a very good answer. Put forth candidates that are very good. Marjorie Taylor Greene style candidates shouldn't be going up against DSA members. Regular, normal people, good. Now, here's actually something that should be rather relieving to you. We're going to find out in the midterms for sure. You're going to notice that the Democrat Party is kind of in disarray, to use kind of a cliche, overused phrase, over the Democratic Socialists of America. And it's not really going their way so far. I mean, they're winning primaries, but they're winning in very contested elections. That's very, very, very good for Republicans. It is. So be comforted. Now, how can we deport more people and make our whole immigration system even harder? Well, this would be the actually nominating good candidates who have cojones to change immigration law. You need that. And by the way, one of the downsides to a maverick approach, a jack of all trades, master of none, still better than master of one. The Trump administration chose to focus on everything for this term. And that means that it's been a lot more difficult for the president to focus on just 3 or 4 things with all of the focus, like on deportation, for example. And the maverick approach does have downsides. You need a laser focus in the next administration. As much as I hate to say it, that's going to have to focus more on that. You also need to be willing to weather some political storm. Republicans have a bit of a problem with, as soon as there is public blowback going, well, I guess we're done with all elections ever. You're seeing this right now, by the way, with the Iran thing. People are going, well, we can't just bomb Iran. We'll lose the midterms. If you govern that way forever, that's a problem. Now, again, regarding the tariff things, does making political decisions have an impact on elections? Absolutely. You have to make the choice on a couple of issues, though. Worth talking about. From Human Gravity, a question I've received before. Tony, hey, how come you're not on Rumble? As soon as I became a YouTube subscriber, I can't find you on Rumble anymore. Yes, there's a good reason why. We tried streaming to Rumble and YouTube at the same time. And the problem is that Rumble's servers, like Rumble's streaming platform, is built on duct tape and wishes. There is a documented problem with Rumble. So Rumble has 2 issues. Issue number 1 is that if you stream on Rumble, it backfeeds bitrate information and somehow crashes a bunch of other streams that you have on other platforms. That's a problem. That's an issue that they've never fixed that issue. Issue number 2 is Rumble has their favorites. Probably shouldn't be saying this, don't care. Rumble has their favorites. And once their favorites, so once Tim Pool comes online, Rumble funnels all of their server capacity over to Tim Pool, and they don't leave anything else to anyone that isn't engaged in certain relationships with them. And I don't care for that. If Nick Fuentes and Tim Pool, who are two very different people, I'm just saying popular people on the platform, all get on there and suddenly take up all the bandwidth, even if we have a lot of people watching it there, yeah, I'm not supporting that. How about no? Rumble needs a better product, and they need to stop making sweetheart deals with people. And, again, growing the show. I'm just saying that's the reason why. There's your answer. I've said it before, but I don't have an issue being transparent with y'all. Christy says, what is the ceiling for donation matching regarding some of these various states and places? The answer to the question is it depends on the place. It depends on the election in the state. Mike Dawson says, Tony, as a former teacher, do you agree that at an early age you learn to read and then you read to learn? No, I don't. I think that reading and writing are excellent tools to increase learning capacity because it opens you up to more detailed and condensed forms of instruction than an individual, a master of one craft can provide. Do I believe, though, that it is that's the pathway and the structure? No, I don't. I think it actually probably has to do a lot more with structuring and building mnemonic devices, phonics instruction, and then rote memorization, and then turning that eventually into manipulation. Now, we screwed that up in education with Bloom's taxonomy and a whole lot of other stuff. That's a topic for another time that I don't think I could succinctly answer here at the end of a show for today. Lewis says, Tony, did your boss really tear into you? My boss currently at the Daily Signal, the editor-in-chief, Katrina Trinko, and then her boss, Rob Bluey, they have only ever torn into me a couple of times. One time was in the 2024 election, which you can go back and see that actual show that we did. I don't recommend it because we were literally installing the studio lights during the show. It was a huge thing, actually. But I got ripped into for eating steak on screen, and it was considered unprofessional to eat while we were doing the show. That's then. The only other time when I've been really torn into, I'm questioned. There are things that I can give my boss heart attacks on, but I'm very rarely ever actually torn into. If I said, I don't think I was torn into. I did get a call at the beginning of the show, by the way, that was just checking in because I'd called him about some of these allegations regarding ActBlue. Now, if I don't do my due diligence and I make big mistakes, yes, I'll get torn into, and rightly so. I'd have to see the context. I assume you're kind of, you're kind of teasing. Ro Khanna for POTUS and AOC to primary Schumer because he's an AIPAC schmuck. Best of luck to you with that, buddy. Hopefully the the whole the Jews. Yeah, that's not going to do what you think it's going to do for you. Tony, you never gave your Tony, you never gave your take on the utter retardation of Candace Owens' last debate with Andrew. I did over on X. I didn't really think it was worth a whole show segment for. Often news comes up that's just honestly more important. But regarding Candace Owens, she's retarded and illiterate. Many others have documented far better than I do that she can't even pronounce very basic words. I believe today that she just said that her followers said we are legion, which would be quoting a demon, rather on the nose. Regarding that debate, that's casting pearls before swine. Just to be honest, she's an idiot. And I don't really know why any of you would subject yourselves to watching a debate with someone who is an idiot and is never going to agree to anything. As soon as she was pushed for evidence, she was like, no, I just say that I think things. I just think things. She's like, I can list all the charges that he's charged with. And then she was asked to present those charges and she couldn't list. It was just pearls before swine. Illiterates. A lot of her viewers, by the way, are botted. And how do I know that they're botted? Because the same people on Black Hat World Forum, that where a lot of the botting marketplace exists, the people that she's hired specifically before, the 4G LTE because she wouldn't actually spring for the 5G fake SIM card Chinese tray botting. They have tried to sell things to me based on botting for her, and have shown me some of the source coding that they've done for that. So womp womp. The last little extra question thing. Oh, I didn't talk about the lanyard grease today. That'll have to be for tomorrow. What a shame. Regarding a lot of people out there that seem to have really big followings, it's very popular for some people to just whore for clicks. And there are some people that make really good content and whore for clicks. Some people, occasionally blind squirrel finds nut every once in a while kind of people. I hear you. Sometimes not. That's just my take on it. I don't think that it's, I don't think that it's either really, really important or kind of a non-issue. Not to insult your question, that's kind of my take on it. So, have a wonderful evening. We'll be back tomorrow with more fun. And yeah, this whole lanyard grease story, all other kinds of things that we didn't get a chance to cover tonight, we will get there. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC. See you tomorrow at 7. And as always, take care.
Every state is home to significant historic sites that tell the American story, but not every site is telling that story honestly and fairly. That's why the Heritage Foundation created the Heritage Guide to Historic Sites. This interactive guide equips American citizens with the tools they need to enjoy the sites that depict some of the greatest moments in our nation's history, analyzing them for historical accuracy, and provides resources for families or educators planning a visit. From Mount Vernon to Independence Hall to Gettysburg and more, Americans deserve transparency, and sites that steward our history faithfully deserve our gratitude. The Heritage Guide to Historic Sites invites every American to rediscover the places and stories that define our nation, whether it's across the country or in your backyard. Visit historicsites.heritage.org to start your adventure today.